Then, probably the most controversial player from Alabama's roster last season, Jalen Milroe gets picked, and he goes third round, 92nd overall to the Seattle Seahawks. And this came as a little bit of a surprise to some people, partially because it was before guys like Shador Sanders, Quinn Ewers, some guys that, coming into the season and depending upon draft pundits, was higher ranked than him. I think that Jalen Milroe deserves the ranking and the place where he got. It would not have surprised me if he had gone a little earlier. But I also look at Jalen Milroe as a guy who needs to be a backup in the NFL to start his career and learn a few more things before he gets thrown into the starting role, right? I think Jalen Milroe has the skill and the ability to succeed in the NFL. I think a lot of that has to do with his work ethic. I think a lot of that has to do with what he knows he needs to do to get better. I saw something earlier today where Milroe was asked by one of the teams, like, what do you need to do to get better? What are you good at? And he goes, how long do you have? And he starts listing off all these things that he's not very good at or, needs to work on. And the team asked him, like, do you think it's a bad thing that, you're listing off all these things? Are you not worried that you're telling us all these things you're working on? And he said, if I didn't list them off, it's almost me pretending you don't know how to watch film. Like, I might as well just tell you what I'm working on because, I want you to understand that I know that I have flaws, right? And that's a perfect answer, right? When you're looking at a quarterback, when you're looking at any player in the NFL draft, they're not going to be perfect, right? Even the number one overall pick has things he needs to work on. That is how sports works. That's how everything works, right? So having a guy as self-aware as Jalen Milroe to know that even though he did lead the Alabama football team very well, he has things he needs to work on. He knows that. That's something that really stands out to a team, right? That leadership quality and that ability to know where you stand and some of the things that you may need to work on. Two-time permanent team captain, right? Was a captain the last 2 seasons. 2-year starter at quarterback. Was 5th in program history in total yards, over 7,500, averaged almost 200 a game, 78 touchdowns, through the air, 6,000 yards and 45 passing touchdowns, which are both 7th all time. For on the ground, he has 3,500 rushing yards. Just absolutely incredible with the ball in his hands is the best way that you can describe Jalen Milroe. When we look at the ups and downs, right, we can all talk about some of the great games and some of the poor games from Milroe, and I think those were talked about a lot during the draft process. But the thing that you have to talk about when you talk about Jalen Milroe is when the ball is in his hands, the decisions he makes often are pretty good. He throws a great deep ball. I know Saban talked about it on the draft during the draft. He also is electric running the football. For any Seahawks fans that are curious what you're getting in Milroe, go watch the LSU game from this last season. Just with the ball in his hands, what he can do is absolutely phenomenal. If you're curious on his passing ability, look at the Georgia game. Right, there were some games that he absolutely could air it out. There were some games that he could, burn rubber on the ground. Obviously, you have the Oklahoma and Tennessee games, Vanderbilt games, some games that just were not as good from him. Of course, that's something the NFL can work on, right? When you're drafting somebody in the 3rd round, you're not fully expecting them to be your starter, right? Seattle has a guy like Geno Smith that's able to play football. They're not concerned about, having to throw him into the starting role right away. But he is somebody that's going to be able to sit behind, learn. They have a quarterback room that's absolutely stacked. They have a ton of guys in that room. So it's a situation where they're going to be able to learn and play together. And I think that Milroe in time can be a very good NFL quarterback and do really good things, because I think that the ability he has with the ball in his hands and on the ground is something that just isn't coachable, right? I think that they can work on some of the passing things and some of the mentals maybe, but what he can do on the ground with his legs is just phenomenal, and I think it's going to have him on the field more often than you might think.